One of the interesting things you said was about there's no clergy reading to you because it could be up to interpretation.
Hmm.
And it reminded me, I've actually been to multiple non-denominational Christian churches in totally different states. One was in California, one was in Idaho, and they talked about the same Bible verses and had totally different
Hmm.
interpretations on what that Bible verse was.
Yeah.
And this was a leader that was teaching us, if you will. So it was really interesting that you said that, because I remember thinking as I was listening to it that it's really interesting that they had their own perspective on it. But we're humans, and that's the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
things are going to be. So I just found that really interesting when you were saying it, and I didn't want to
Yeah.
cut you off
Oh no.
again.
Right. No, that's fine. And I like what you said there. I think that is true, especially when you're talking about religious writings. Like poetry, for example, is I had some good writing teachers. Not that I'm a particularly good writer, but
Mhm.
they said how poetry is very dense. You know how like you have to like get like they'll leave out words or it's just very dense. It's
Right,
not
right,
like there's spot, see spot, run. That's not dense, right? But
right.
poetry can be very dense. And I think spiritual writings like the Bible or the Psalms and so forth are very dense. And buried in there is all this meaning, right? And we wouldn't
Mhm.
hesitate to read a poem and come up with a different interpretation. So why do we read a holy book and not expect us to come away with something slightly different?
Right. I
Yeah.
remember, and Damien, I know you've read all the New Testament. I don't know if you remember this, but there was actually a part that stood out to me, and I don't even know the verse, book, or anything like that, so I'm not even going to try to say it. But there was a part where Jesus had talked about, you'll hear my words multiple times, and each time you'll get different meaning from them. I'm paraphrasing very
Sure.
much so, but that kind of reminded me of that too.
Yeah.
And I find that's true. The older I get and the more worldly
Hmm.
experience I guess I have, the more I see things in a different light, of course. And I think that's all of us probably do that. Even not even Jesus' teachings, just in the world.
Right.
Damien and I, on one of our last podcasts, we were talking about how you look at even your children, you
Hmm.
know, probably as a 29-year-old, you'll look at them in one way, but then when you're 49 or 59 or 69, you'll look at it a different way, even though it's grandkids or whatever, but they might be doing the same thing your children did,
Yeah.
and you'll have a totally different perspective
Yes.
on that. And